In a world where QR codes kill kittens and customer service is an oxymoron, UnPodcast has set out to make things right. This is the UnPodcast.
Can you get your feet...
I realized I can see myself in the mirror if I angle myself better.
Can you get your feet off our table? Like... We spend time, and I have no idea what time, Adam, they get here probably 2 hours. They've been setting up this table, and you just throw your feet up on it.
Because
it's nothing.
I realize there's multiple mirrors I can see myself in here. It's pretty awesome.
It's going to be really hard to keep your attention this time now that you found the mirrors.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the UnPodcast. She's Allison, I'm Scott.
I am.
This is an episode coming out that we got a little exciting things for our fellow Canadians.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody, from coast to coast, east to west, north to south? We have a Indigo exclusive coming out. We don't usually promote our own products on this type of thing.
Not
But a really
usually.
cool deal. Indigo came out and said, "We like them unbooks. Can we make some?" We're like, "Sure." How
We
many
have
of them?
unbooks?
How many ones do you want? They want all 4.
Ooh.
So they came out with the
Quadrilogy.
UnQuadrilogy. And then so last night, by the way, we're talking to Aiden, our oldest, a child of the 5, and he's like, I said, it's the UnQuadrilogy. And he's like, what's that actually called, though? I'm like, quadrilogy. Dude.
Yeah.
He wouldn't believe me. Yeah, it's quadrilogy. We got the UnQuadrilogy. So we have them here. If you are watching the video, we do have them here with us if you're listening on the audio. We have UnLeadership, Unbranding, Unselling, and Unmarketing all coming out under paperback. It's the unbox set I've always wanted. No box, though. The funny thing is that
it's not a box set.
They specifically came out and said, by the way, there is no box happening.
Yeah, no. So this isn't a box set, although we do hope that eventually it will be one.
I will create the box.
Yes, but right now, basically what happened was it's a re-release. So there hasn't been big changes to the books. It's basically a re-release of the books. We added some new little introductions to the beginning. So we didn't they aren't rewritten for a Canadian audience
but
or
they
anything
all have
like that.
the newest author photo, which is a sexy photo. It's a sexy photo. I'm just gonna say that right now.
Oh my goodness.
We're looking pretty decent.
It was pretty fun though because for anyone who doesn't know, Unmarketing came out quite a while ago, right? We wrote Unmarketing in 2000 and
it came out 2010.
2010. So, going back and rereading it, because we've done 2 different editions of Unmarketing. We did first a paperback and then we did a second edition.
Yeah.
So I have revisited, as an author, I've revisited the books a couple times. We revisited them. But for this, it was a real, opening up a book that we really hadn't read in quite a long time. And, it's a little bit, like looking at your high school photos sometimes. When you go back and look at work that you wrote, a long time ago, 15 years ago.
I'm just picturing frosted tips on my head.
But
that
that is kind of it. There's this feeling of, especially when it's writing, you go back and you're like, well, that's not exactly how I might phrase it today.
That's true.
Or that company that we talked about then for certain reasons, maybe we're not supporting that company, but things change.
Removing people from acknowledgement sections. Yeah, those type of things.
But,
yeah.
It's really about the through line. Looking at all the books and seeing that the through line of Unmarketing really hasn't changed. It's about business and about relationships and that, focusing your business on building relationships, which is a through line through all the books, which was sort of cool to see. The real heart of the books hasn't changed and the voice of the books haven't changed, even though it's been, decades since we've written them.
And honestly, though, when you look at, especially, remove UnLeadership from it for a second. If you take Unbranding, Unselling, and Unmarketing, they're just sequential books. Yeah. Honestly, right? One isn't about sales. One isn't about branding. One isn't about marketing.
Not really.
They're all the same idea, though, right?
Yeah.
It's about connecting and building relationships and being ethical and it's all those things. Yes, it works, but it's also what is branding? It's all about people talking with each other or about you or your product or your service.
Which really, because it comes back to that core sort of Unmarketing thing of customers not seeing silos.
Right.
So you may be in marketing, you may be in sales, you may be in branding, but when somebody interacts with your company, they're just seeing your company, right? Yeah. And so, we do talk about each of those just sort of ideas like marketing and branding and sales, but it's really about how are you representing your company in a way that actually is connecting with your audience, with your customers, which was pretty cool. And then UnLeadership was funny because we just wrote UnLeadership.
Yeah, it just came out.
So that was kind of fun to do too.
And then it's a paperback now here too. And it's just such a, so that's really cool. So we're digging that. So by the way, we're gonna give away this set we have right in front of us, by the way. This is the first set of it as well.
It is. It's our set. We'll sign them. We'll give them away. So if anyone's, what shall we have them do for this, Mr. Stratton? These are the kind of things people usually think about before they record a show.
Well, we can just do
What do you think?
First person to email us.
All right. First person to email us for the set.
UnPodcast at unmarketing.com. If you're listening to this right now or watching it and you want this set, and you're watching the video, by the way, right now on LinkedIn or something or YouTube, don't comment on it. Don't be lazy. You can comment. Please comment. We love you commenting. But if you want the set, email unpodcast at unmarketing.com and just say, give me that book. Set. Give me the book set.
Okay.
Not the book.
Got it.
And we'll see. And then first gets it. The rest of you, maybe you should have listened sooner. Yeah.
And for everyone else, UnLeadership is still new. It's our newest book. Now there's a paperback copy, which is kind of cool too.
But the UnLeadership, and the reason why I kept it out of the group when I mentioned that kind of they all had the same kind of idea, just kind of sequential. UnLeadership is a departure from it.
A little bit.
And absolutely love it, though. You interviewed 53 unleaders to us. Who are unleaders to us? It was 53 people we've had the honor or pleasure of either knowing, getting to know, or heard of that we just thought these people need to be elevated. These people need to be heard of. And a lot of that means you don't know who these people are. You haven't heard of them.
Yeah.
And the goal is to make sure that you do.
We really I think one of those things with leadership is we tend to think of it being like you need one mentor, you need one leader to learn from, you need one person to sort of look to. And for us, that has never really worked.
Right.
Because for us, it's always been like a collection of voices. So instead of trying to find one right mentor, mentors for a bunch of things. Your business mentors, your speaking mentors, your writing mentors, your in your personal relationships, you may have mentors, or in your industry, you may have mentors. And so to us, what UnLeadership really represents to me is sort of this collection, this like book of mentoring, this book of leadership that kind of collects all different parts of leadership, because really, it's leadership as different as people, right? Like what motivates you, what engages you, what brings you to action, or is going to be different than what works on me. And that's okay. Like there doesn't need to be one leader. There doesn't need to be one format for leadership. If
you and I talk about one of the things we talked about just in leadership principles was that whole thing of self-awareness, right? About how important that is. And I think part of this book for us is our own self-awareness, being that it's over 50 other people. Yeah. That it's not, and there's our own stories in there as well.
There's quite a lot of our own stories
but the majority of the book are unleaders that we want to elevate out there, because we're not at corporations.
No.
The company is Allison and I. And so us coming out there saying, this is how you can lead better at your office. We're just leading
each other.
Right? Yeah. So like if it's thought leadership stuff, I could do all day. But we call it thought unleadership. Because we do all with stuff. That's how it works.
One of the things too.
But that's with the leadership side of it, us saying, look, there's people out there that are doing things differently, incredibly well, and also let's let them speak on it. But also because the each chapter is their words.
We kind of mixed most of the chapters. So what it was kind of interesting, like as an author, it'd be interesting to hear what other people think. But like what we set out to do sort of changed because of what we got, which is cool, right? Like we set out, we're like, we don't know everything. We want to write this book. We're going to set out to interview these people who we've learned from, who've led teams, who've led companies, who've inspired movements, who've inspired groups of people across industries and profit, not for profit, and the interviews, it was like a I don't know how else to explain it other than it was a personally transformational experience to sit down with people and hear their stories, ask them what leadership means to them, ask them who influenced them, ask them some of the lessons they've learned along the way, how their leadership has changed. This is like really powerful stuff from people. And so, in books in the past when we've done interviews, and there are some chapters in the book that are like this, where I took the interview and wrote a chapter.
Right.
But there's also some chapters where I spoke to the person I interviewed and was like, can we do this in your own words? Like, I'd really like, so when you read some of the chapters on leadership, it says very clearly at the top that it's in their own words, and it's more like listening to them tell you the story of their leadership. Because I felt like for me, I didn't feel like the best way to tell their story was for me to rewrite it in my words.
Right.
So it's a little different, but it's also still like that through line is so clear.
And the biggest group concentration of people in the book from places are Canadians.
There are a lot of Canadians,
Yeah.
which is cool because this is a Canadian thing. A lot of Canadian leaders, but that also is about us, right? That's
Yeah.
also a very personal thing of saying like who influenced you. Well, this is where we are, so we happen to have a lot of contact with
Right,
some great
yeah.
Canadian leaders.
Of course. Exactly.
Yeah, so we hope you guys will pick them up and.
Yeah, please.
Cool. Send us an
email. If you still haven't emailed us and you already heard us say the email, it's already too late. Right. So if you didn't just instantly do it, then what's wrong with you?
I gotta go email us.
I got to go email us right now. Right now.
All right, what you got there?
So talking about awesome things, I have a story here that combines both Dr. Pepper and Axl Rose.
All right.
So I don't even know.
I do love Dr. Pepper.
Now,
I do love-
mind you, there's a caveat to this story.
A caveat?
It is 17 years old. So I just stumbled upon the story now.
I love that there's a story you stumbled upon.
How did you nor I never hear this
Why isn't
story?
it in Unmarketing if it's
Right?
a
Thank you.
17-year-old story? Is this Unmarketing? I pointed.
It's okay.
Unmarketing.
So this is from The Guardian. Oh, sorry. By the way, when I went to print this article, because we read the articles up if you're just listening to this, for the first time ever,
Yeah.
I think this is a newer thing, I
Okay.
went to print this and it gave me a warning.
Why?
The Guardian did. And it said, warning, this story is 17 years old.
But that's good though.
But good. I'm saying they're just like, things could have been updated since then.
Well, I hope.
So it's just like now they see these warnings on sites saying this article is over this many years old.
Yeah.
Be careful citing it.
Yeah.
I've never seen that on a
that's
news
really,
site.
They should do that.
Saying,
that's good.
hey, by the way, you're really digging deep here.
Yeah.
You're
But
going
also,
into the archives.
I mean, Dr. Pepper never changes. It is universally understandable and definable.
So Dr. Pepper, yeah, it does. As our fan of the
Acaster.
podcast, James
Yeah,
Agcaster,
fan of the podcast.
he doesn't listen. It says, describing the Dr. Pepper taste, he says it tastes like a sexy battery.
Yeah, sexy
which
battery.
is the best description of Dr. Pepper I ever
Yeah, sexy
came up
battery.
with, tasting a sexy battery. Like, that's pretty much what it is. So here's the story. By the way, Wayne, when I said Dr. Pepper and Axl, do you know the story?
I don't.
Okay, good. Okay, so Adam, anybody know the story? Okay, at least I feel a little better about that but it's like I'm just like if everybody had heard of this except us.
All right, well, let's
I would
hear the story.
Question my fandom of the somewhat train wreck of Guns N' Roses. All right, ready? The soft drink giants refuses to get in the ring with Guns N' Roses. Oh, right from the jump, they used "Get in the Ring." It's a Guns N' Roses song, by the way. But you're not allowed to play it on the radio. Over its alleged botching of the Chinese Democracy free can promotion. It's the greatest opening sentence I think I've read of anything. Okay, so for those not knowing, Chinese Democracy is the very long in development album that was the follow-up for, I think it was after Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, where it just never... It was Axl Rose left over. That pretty much was it. And then Velvet Revolver was doing their own thing with the rest of the band. So here we go. It was a gesture intended to spur on Axl Rose and co. in the completion of the long-awaited Guns N' Roses album, Chinese Democracy.
Okay.
So they're kind of tongue-in-cheek saying, look, Axl, if you finish this album, we got a thing. Dr. Pepper, the U.S. soft drinks giant, offered every American a free can of the carbonated beverage, providing the band released their sixth studio album 14 years in the making. Much to everyone's surprise, not least of all Dr. Pepper's, the band finally delivered the album last month. This is a 2008 article, by the way. Laying waste to those good old jokes that its arrival was unlikely as actual Chinese democracy. Yikes. Did the soft drink giants deliver on its unbelievable promise? Well, in a manner of speaking, yes, and also no. The company set up a 24-hour website offering on the same day, November 23rd, that Chinese Democracy was released, through which Americans could claim a coupon that could be exchanged for a can of Dr. Pepper. However, many claimed it was inaccessible for most of the day. Amazing that the server went down for most of the day. Complaints were registered, and the company then offered a toll-free number to register for coupons and extend the offer to 6 p.m. the following day. But Axl Rose was not happy. Tell me, Axl. Tell me. Oh, I'm sorry. This is going to go through the Guns N' Roses lawyer. Not as fun. I was about to do a large screeching sound. Our clients are outraged at your treatment of their fans and the American public in general. Wow.
Well done.
Where do we go? Guns N' Roses lawyer Alan Gutman wrote in a letter to Dr. Pepper Snapple Group CEO Larry Young. That's a hell of a title. This offer was an unmitigated disaster which defrauded consumers and, in the eyes of vocal fans, ruined the day of Chinese Democracy's release. I think the actual album ruined the day of Chinese Democracy's
so
release.
I have a few questions. I realize it's a very old story, but I don't think it's old in that I think the problem still very much is happening. You know, what was interesting when I first started writing the article, I assumed that it had been like a collaboration. I think because it's, 15 years later or 12 years later. Yeah. Now when we usually see things like Dr. Pepper's promoting an album, it's something that Dr. Pepper and the artists have talked about before, right?
This is the craziest thing to me about this.
Yeah, because and I feel like maybe that's partially like the Wild West in that when it happened, there wasn't as much like influencer stuff was all over. And, it wasn't like, now, if Dr. Pepper was going to do something like this, they would have spoken with it. Like, it would be arranged, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I was blown away that this wasn't a partnership, that they just said it.
Because that's what I mean. Like, when you look at,
crazy.
I was trying to think of an example. Like, look at what happened with the Barbie movie. Remember last year? And, like, everything was Barbie and everything was all this integration or product or whatever. Like, it's planned, though. It's like a campaign. So where this is like, was this before campaigns? Like Dr. Pepper just really wanted them to release Chinese democracy, and they just wanted to, I don't know.
No tie.
I thought it was really funny.
There's no tie at all. That's the problem is.
But companies are still doing stuff like this in that, like, not thinking about the follow through of what they're offering. Like, it's sort of,
I don't. Like, there was no...
A coupon for one can of Dr. Pepper? Like, is that 98 cents?
Hey, if you see a can of Dr. Pepper, you know Guns N' Roses in town. Like, there was never a connection between the two brands. That'd be like, oh, this makes sense.
Like, does Axl
Dr. Pepper coming off the top rope to finally finish the album. That's what we always thought was going to happen. Like, you sat around, like, another meeting. This is a meeting. The pitch table. I got an idea. Why don't we pressure Axl Rose? Hear me out, everybody. Boys, hear me out.
Because no one's tried that before.
Let's pressure Axl Rose to finish this album 14 years in waiting. Now their entire fan base has moved on. Let's pressure them by saying if they get it done, we'll give everybody Dr. Pepper.
Plus, you know how everyone who loves Guns N' Roses loves Dr. Pepper?
Like there's, I can't even reach for a connection.
It's a sexy battery.
It just tastes like a sexy battery.
I just like saying it.
Mixed fruit flavor. What kind of mixed fruit's in that?
Do you want me to read this one?
Never send something back because it tasted too Dr. Peppery. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
By
the way, watch the James Acaster, by the way.
We're really just quoting James Acaster, so we should...
episode. Incredible.
So, this really bugs me. I don't know. I have a thing with work-life balance. So this will be fun to talk about. Okay, so this is from livemint.com, and it says, after L&T 90-hour work week debate, Crunch Fitness CEO says no work-life balance. Employees must sacrifice. Which, a lot of bosses say. So basically, he comes out and says that there's no such thing as work-life balance, that... what are you willing to sacrifice for your goals? So basically, like, you have to, no pain, no gain. I mean, to
90 a week.
Yeah, it's a no pain, no gain business plan.
This man wants you to work 15 hours a day.
Basically, I mean, yeah, and if you don't, it's your fault. And it's just, like, I understand with working out.
No.
It's just...
No. I need everybody to listen to me. Not you.
All right,
Not you.
You go.
The audience needs to listen to this.
He says there's no such thing, Scott.
Okay, first I'm going to separate, because it's two separate things I'm going to get angry about, and I need to separate them. The fitness industry, I'm going to put aside for a moment, okay?
Yes.
CEO. Anybody listening and watching right now, everybody, when you have equity in a brand, shares, ownership, compensation, bonus system tied to the value of the company. Your drivers of what makes you go are different than the person working your front desk. When you start saying you have to be dedicated to this business like I am, you sound like an idiot. Yeah. You sound like an idiot because you do not have the same vested interest as they do in the company. And when somebody turns around, again, fitness industry aside, when somebody turns around and says, well, we have a shareholder responsibility to do something in a public company, you're the shareholder. So what you're trying to say is, over there is my responsibility when you are the actual person profiting from this. And either if you have shares, or your compensation is based on the rise or fall of said shares, that is not something that motivates your team, your staff, your employees. They don't care about shareholder value. You get to a point in a corporation where you stop talking about customers and you start talking about shareholder value, and that's where you lose the plot.
Yeah.
Between that step there is where the plot is lost, where you stop saying customer and value and loyalty, and you start saying EBITDA and overhead and headcount. And that's where in business we lose the plot. But this is the interesting part to me. So let's take this Crunch Fitness person with that whole industry is just a whole nother level on its own with this type of stuff. I'll calm down. But you take this person. Now, where I find it interesting is the person in the middle of that. Not the front line, not leadership, but the manager of 3 locations or something who loves their people.
Yeah. Who
loves their people and wants them to succeed and support them, but over them is something that is not supportive. How do they do it? How does that person help the people below them when the person above that person is the problem?
Yeah.
That's what I find interesting. And that's what I'm trying to focus on right now, because if I didn't, I focus so quickly nowadays on the bad. The show is called the Unpodcast, the show for the fed up. But where can we do the good in here then? So what happens if the person because my only answer is find a new job.
No. So
that's not the right answer.
No, I would say a few things.
Yeah.
So there was one other thing I want to talk about the article, but in terms of what you're saying, I think that this happens in a lot of positions. I think there are many people in a company who has a what I would call like a position of relative power. Right. So like you might not be the boss, you might not be the head of this, but you're also not necessarily the front line. You're managing people. You're in a position where, yes, you have to answer to people, but you also can create some kind of like good environment for the people who work for you. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in that space. I think there's a lot of opportunities to be a good manager working with what you, I really fundamentally believe that. I think you can be a better listener. I think you can make the workspace safer. You can have accountability for people in your office. You can expect people to treat people a certain way. Like being a direct manager, you have a lot of power to influence the environment that the people who work for you in. I always think we do. I just don't live in a mindset where it's all or nothing. Like I really don't. I think even with our peers in a workplace, we have an opportunity to make it a better experience for the people whose desk is beside us. Like we have those opportunities.
But what happens if the highest paid person in the room is saying that you either work 90 hours a week or you're out?
100%. I understand that.
How do you work with that with somebody? Then somebody turns to you and says, I have young kids, and what are you talking about?
What really bothers me about this is the way that he's taking language, this metaphor of working out, this no pain, no gain, no sacrifice, you have to push through. Yeah, like if I'm trying to get gains on my legs, yeah, like it hurts and like it takes months and like these are all real things from fitness. But the metaphor of taking the fitness allegory or whatever and putting it into a business world, no one actually knows that that's true. Like we don't know that if we push people to their limits in a company that the best work comes out of the like. And I don't see that.
And I think the managing skill is not managing the go-getter, not managing the people who are trying to climb the ladder.
Yeah.
The skill is managing the worker who isn't going to be there forever. The skill is to manage the person who's going to be there for a year or two.
I think
which are
both,
but also that's most part-time jobs. A lot of gyms, a lot of food service, a lot of hotels, the average stay is under a year. I'm just saying overall. And looking at that is how then can you somehow, and that's the trick, right? I think that is the actual valuable skill of bringing somebody in is because the people that are only planning on being there a summer, like when I went to work at McDonald's when I was 14, that was going to be that summer. They wanted me to work forever. I'm like, 2 months and I'm out of here. But that person who wasn't planning on staying, some of them actually end up staying.
But this is a shortcut for an excuse to treat people badly.
100%.
This is an excuse. This is saying, as the boss, my job is to push you as hard as possible only. And your job as employee is to push through what I'm giving you and deal with it.
Right.
And it's more complicated than that. To be a good leader, you have to do more than that.
Stop
it's more.
Sending people to resilience training
when
the reason why they need to be resilient is this weight you're putting on them.
Because it isn't the same as, hurting muscle tissue and it building itself back up.
100%.
They're
All
people.
Right. We're going to get out of here before Scott gets angry. But before we get out of here, we do have one made-up word.
What?
We have a made-up word. Wayne, kick it. Come on. It's not coming.
Made up word.
Don't make any sense. Don't mean no offense. It brings laziness. What is all this craziness?
So only time I'm singing on the podcast ever. So
The made-up word is a word that one of you fine of our 7 listeners sends us in.
upwards of 8.
Upwards of 8. Unpodcast at unmarketing.com, or you can go to the website unpodcast.com and it'll just send us a note, or do it on Instagram or wherever you feel like finding us. If you find us elsewhere, let us know, because we're not there.
Smoke signals, whatever.
This is from Greg Bickert. And it says, "I'm so glad you're back." By the way, it always helps to open up.
Do
with
we
a
send
compliment.
socks for made-up words too? Didn't we used to do that?
No, sorry. You can pick Jackass Whisperer socks or any of our books.
There you go.
We'll send you one if we use your word on the show, and we'll send you anybody else's book as well if you don't want one of ours. But we're going to sign it and make it weird. Greg sends in and says, "I'm so glad you're back. I can share my fave made-up word, and it's Schadenfriday. According to Urban Dictionary, it's the day where you can finally laugh at another's misfortune and not be taken as a heartless bastard."
Like at the Chiefs?
Yeah. Oh, too soon.
Well,
day
this
after
is
the
like it's not the day
right.
after
No,
the
right.
Super Bowl.
When you're hearing this, is not the day after the Super
No,
Bowl.
it's weeks. It's weeks.
How's Drake feeling now? That's good. We good? Okay, cool. So that's the where you can finally laugh at another misfortune.
So for Lions fans, you have a lot of session.
Whoa!
I love you.
How are we catching strays on the exit of the show at the
Love
end here?
you.
Oh, get out of here. All right.
Bye, guys.
Go Lions.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and visit theunpodcast.com. And remember, friends don't let friends use QR codes.